None of the half dozen companies with the most notable diversity gains wanted to discuss them in detail. I wonder why. Why is this article not like insanely racist policies by top companies disenfranchising white people?
Well, because they think of it as affirmative action.
I am curious if someone will bring a lawsuit against these companies because I mean this just seems like blatant racial
Well, this
discrimination.
would be a good piece of evidence for their lawsuit,
Yeah,
wouldn't it?
exactly.
We have this article in Bloomberg here.
Yeah, look at this. Hey now, everybody. This was a interesting article that someone shared with me. It says corporate America promised to hire a lot more people of color, and it actually did. You
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Big improvement.
right. So first you hear that and you're like, oh, okay, that sounds good, right? But then you read the byline and it says the year after Black Lives Matter protests, the S&P added more than 300,000 jobs, and 94% of them went to people of color.
Wow. Okay.
94%. So
This is
we're
like a freeze on white people hiring or
yeah,
something.
yes, I'm like, oh, okay. The difference between like we hired more people of color and we just stopped hiring white people.
What I just was it are they located in areas where there's a superabundance of people of color or I mean,
Well, let's
okay,
find out.
I'm assuming the article will illuminate a little
It
more.
will.
You
Okay,
piqued
let's
my interest. I'm a little I'm a little wary here, but let's see where this goes.
okay. So the article says for a brief moment in 2020, much of corporate America united around a common goal to address the stark racial imbalances in the workplace. Mass protests sparked by the murder of George Floyd led to a flurry of company promises, both specific and vague, to hire and promote more Black people and others from underrepresented groups. Executive analysis by Bloomberg News shows how many of the biggest public companies did.
All right.
Okay. The U.S. Employee Opportunity Commission requires companies with 100 or more employees report their workforce demographics every year. Bloomberg obtained 2020 and 2021 data for 88 of the S&P 100 companies and calculated the overall U.S. job growth at those firms. In total, they increased the U.S. workforce by 323,940 people in 2021, the first year after the Black Lives Matter protest and the most recent year for which this data exists.
Great.
Okay. Now we scroll down and you start to see the graphic looks a little, a little sketchy.
Okay. Okay, hold on a second here.
Yes.
Okay. Look, we've got the white people here 6% and the
Yeah.
people of color 94%.
Yeah.
And they've got it I mean, it looks like two tribes going to war with one another here. Is
Yeah,
this to scale?
that seems a little sketchy, doesn't it? It seems a
Uh-huh.
little unusual here.
Okay.
'Cause
So I moved down and now we're breaking it up into the different demographics.
right. Because obviously white people in America make up far more than 6%.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're not going with the equity model here.
Right. So it said the overall job growth included 20,524 white workers, and the other 300,000 jobs, or 94% of the headcount increase, went to people of color.
Okay.
And then it kind of breaks down each one individually by category.
Right.
People of color make up the minority of the U.S. population, and in most cases are underrepresented at big U.S. companies. In 2021, Hispanic, Asian, and Black people made up the vast majority of added workers, a trend that analysts say is necessary to overcome their historic underrepresentation. Well, I'm glad analysts say it's necessary.
Right. And this breakdown is a little better. You look at originally, you're thinking, oh, it's all black people, but it's 23% black people, 22% Asians, 40% Hispanic, and 8% other races. So,
Yeah, but I I mean, we shouldn't be like, to me, it's insane, if white people only, make up the majority of the country, and yet there's like this intentional thing where they're like, listen, we're just not going to hire white people anymore.
look,
Like, it's
since
going to
I live
literally
in
drop to
Southern
6%.
California, I'm used
Yeah.
to being discriminated against. So, like, you need to learn your place.
Okay. Okay. So according to the US Census Bureau, it says 75% of the population is white and 59% is white non-Hispanic. So
Okay.
I guess so that would be 59% according to this chart would be white non-Hispanic and only 6% of that. So like a massive, massive, massive underrepresentation in hiring
For white workers.
for white workers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The next chart says the biggest shift happened in less senior job categories. White people held fewer of those roles in 2021 than they did in 2020, whereas thousands of people of color were added to the ranks. But the trend continued up the job ladder in top high paid jobs too, companies increasing the racial diversity among executives, managers, and professionals. Well, first of all, is it weird that they're referring to white Hispanic people as people of color?
I guess. I mean, I don't know how the stats usually go.
Because no, it's usually they usually go white people.
Like white European is what
Well,
you think. Caucasian.
they usually go white, white, not Hispanic, and then sometimes they'll say white Hispanic, and they'll say like Hispanic, not white, and then they'll say black, Asian, and then like other. That usually is like the breakdown. So it's weird. This article just says that white Hispanic people are people of color. That's very bizarre, in my opinion.
Okay. What is there's a difference between white Hispanic and brown Hispanic? What is the difference?
Well, one's white and one's not. I don't mean, what do you mean? How do you
Why
mean?
look, I'm real nebulous on what white actually means anyway.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just saying in terms of how this, data is usually collected, they usually make a distinction.
Right.
So this chart shows that now this chart's kind of interesting. It shows that among executives and
Yeah, I
senior
was
level
I
managers,
was
it's
looking at
still
that.
majority white.
Well,
Uh,
Asians are
yeah, Asians
I
are
see why they want to throw Asians in the white category now. They're like, you guys are doing too good.
yeah, because Asians are way so it says that whites made up 1.1 thousand of the new executive jobs, and Asians made up 766 of the new executive jobs. So that's way disproportionate in favor of Asians.
I'm looking at the professionals category too. Like, what's going on here?
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, so let's go down, but first we'll go to the managers. So
Right.
in the managers, even then in that, the managers are made up still majority are Asian, even over
Yeah.
white. Look at that.
I
In
mean, this makes
Hispanic.
me think maybe we are actually living in a meritocracy. I do feel like Asians work a lot harder.
And then yeah, then professionals, it's like you see a even bigger increase in Asians.
Right.
But you're right, this is funny because this is why you have these situations where they're like, we're gonna increase diversity. And it's like, okay, but that means that we have to limit Asians going to colleges, right? Like,
Yeah, of course. Well, then we look at the lesser roles, and again, look, you have Hispanic cleaning up.
yeah, then you have a massive boom for Hispanic.
That's like
Uh
the Protestant work ethic right there.
there you go.
Boom.
There you go. You have a lot of blacks, 50,000, and then the whites shrink substantially
Yeah.
to be
So do
the
the
smallest.
Asians.
So, but you see, the woke people will look at this and they'll say, "Oh, this is even though you literally had a situation where only 6% of the new workforce that was hired
Right.
for these companies was white. Okay, even though overwhelming hiring bias,
It's still
obviously
messed
racism,
up.
right? What we're gonna look at and say, no, this is still messed up because look, they only didn't hire white people for like the bottom tier, but for all the other tiers, look at all the white people they hired. Not enough, not
How
enough.
look how much of this is being driven by autism where they just want to see the categories like perfectly. They're like, "No, look, these are not even."
Yeah, exactly,
It's
exactly.
like
They want to see
obsessive compulsive disorder.
right, right.
All
Okay, then
right.
the next chart brings up
Oh
that
no.
point exactly.
Okay.
Saying white people still hold a disproportionate share of the top highly paid jobs in the U.S. at S&P 100 companies, but the share of executive, managerial, and professional roles held by the people of color increased by 2 percentage points compared with 2020, more than double the average annual gains at big and mid-sized U.S. companies in previous years. So in this
Right.
chart, they have now this chart doesn't show the new people that were hired. It shows the existing group, including the
Right.
new hires. And so, but the thing that's dumb about this is like, well, yeah, obviously there's still going to be a lot more white people at the top because it usually takes a long time for people to get to those positions anyway. Like they'll
Yeah,
usually
they're
have to
trying to
work their way
work
up
people
there.
up the hierarchy.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well,
And then
sure. I
even
mean, they're doing it.
right, but even this, like if you look at the if you look at if you look at less senior roles, I mean 20% black, that's more than the percentage of black people in the country.
Right. Yeah, it's
So
13%, isn't it?
yeah. And the professional and managers, like professionals at 8, that's not that far off. Managers at 10%, that's not that far off. Executives
Right.
is the only one that's like half, 6%. So
I learned that the black population was at 20%, but because of immigration policy, they got it down to 13% because of
all the Hispanic immigration.
basic racist immigration policy. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, I've heard some people say, that they want to concentrate on keeping the population the same. Like that's very important to some of these people on immigration.
Hmm.
And I'm like, well, shouldn't you increase the black population and get it back up to 20% where it was? Like you
There
knocked
you
it down
go.
by a whole 7% because of racist immigration
There
policies.
you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, there it is. I agree. Okay, you can scroll to the bottom.
All right.
Because
What's
it
up?
goes
What's
on.
up next? Okay.
Yeah, the only other things I want to talk about in this article is that first of all, it says that the data that we're looking at is only through 2021. So we don't know if this trend has continued yet. Like this trend could still be continuing to this day. We don't know
Right.
exactly.
Okay.
Scary.
We're like 2 years later. So,
Right. But there is some hope. There is some hope at the light at the end of this tunnel here for this insanely woke racism that's basically been happening, and everyone I guess is just fine for like why is this article not like insanely racist policies by top companies disenfranchising white people?
well, because they think of it as affirmative action. So,
Well, that's I mean part of my question is how is this not illegal? How has no one like sued them for this? This seems like it should be definitely legal.
the left doesn't look at it that way.
No, no,
And
I understand
most
that, but it
most of these
should
this
it
is
sh
this is like Bloomberg though. I mean, you'd
right.
think it would be a right wing or a more right wing publication, but no.
Well, they're kind of applauding it though. That's why they're not
Yeah.
criticizing this. Yeah.
Yeah, but the left wing framing is what they're applauding.
Right, but I am curious if someone will bring a lawsuit against these companies because I mean this just seems like blatant racial
Well, this
discrimination.
would be a good piece of evidence for their lawsuit, wouldn't it?
Exactly.
We have this article in Bloomberg here.
Yeah, look at this. Okay, so at the end of the article, there is some hope. Maybe it says while the overall U.S. labor market remains healthy, many companies have announced layoffs. At the same time, the cultural winds have shifted. Support for corporations, environment, and social policies which encompass diversity initiatives have waned as some conservative politicians and policymakers rail against what they've labeled woke capitalism.
There's your word again.
I've actually heard lots of leftists complain about woke capitalism too, so it's not just conservatives, but many chief executive officers are wondering if the scope of the Supreme Court June ruling on race-based admissions could apply to their own hiring goals. Yeah, see, there it is.
Maybe that's why it's waning. Maybe they're like, oh my God, we
They don't want to get
caught doing a
sued.
bunch of racist stuff here. We better
Yeah.
stop.
Yes. Quote, we've seen 3 years later how quickly DEI is becoming deprioritized. Burst, says LaJoey Lubin, who no longer works in-house at a company but still consults. Quote, and now it's like, oh, well, the business isn't doing well, so where are we going to cut resources and investment? DEI and people's teams.
They spend, I think, $5 billion a year on DEI. So
Yes.
that's going to be the first to go. Yeah.
Well, of course. I mean, listen, all this DEI stuff, this is all luxury beliefs.
It is.
Right?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is.
As soon
if
as
the, if
there's,
the company's struggling,
yes,
you don't want to fire employees. You want to get rid of the DEI trainers.
they're like, we're okay. Like, we're making a product and we're not doing great right now. Am I going to fire the engineers that make the product or am I going to fire the people that walk around and tell everyone not to be racist? This is a
Yeah.
difficult choice.
Exactly. Exactly. Hey, you guys can still make this product with like a little bit of racism around here, right?
Yeah, listen, it's like, how much will like the 10% racism increase? That's our bottom line.
Look, and they're like leaning in. Look, we weren't really racist around here anyway. So
It's like, oh, okay. You're saying there'll be another, like, actually, according to our data, if we get rid of the DI people, there'll be less racist
exactly.
and we'll save money. And they're like, oh, why are we doing this again?
Yes, exactly.
For the good publicity. Oh, okay. I remember
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Companies are reticent to talk about progress that several years ago they might have been keen to acknowledge, according to Esther Silver Parker, an independent consultant whose previous roles include helping Walmart develop its diversity, equity, and inclusion program. Mentions of diversity, equity, and inclusion on earnings calls and at conferences among Russell's 3,000 index companies fell by 54% in the third quarter, according to data compiled by Bloomberg.
That is great news.
Fantastic news. Oh, so happy to hear.
Right.
None of the half dozen companies with the most notable diversity gains wanted to discuss them in detail. I wonder why.
Look, I listen to some of these earning calls from time to time. Oh, and it's so cringe when they start talking about this.
Of course it is.
Because it's so off topic. It's like nobody cares.
Yes.
Well, I guess some people do care, obviously. But
of course. And I wish that you could be in some of these boardrooms. You could just see, like, when the person starts talking about diversity, all the people take out their phones. You know, they start playing Wordle on their phone or whatever. They're like, scrolling through X.
Exactly. Yeah.
Quote, the stance is just do what we need to do and not talk about it, Silver Parker said. Let's fly under the radar. Let's not call attention to ourselves, but we know we have a moral obligation and a marketplace obligation.
Wow. Okay.
Hilarious.
That's great.
So there you go. So it's kind of disgusting that there was this obvious, like, very racist hiring quota that was going on, but it looks like the tides are shifting.
Yeah. So we'll see where this goes. We'll keep an eye on it and let you guys know. Leave us a comment. Tell us what your thoughts are on this. So anything else, Sitch, or
that's it?
Clip it, CT. CT, you can take that out of there if you want.
No, it has to be included. What are you talking about?
Hi, you just listened to a clip from the Sitch and Adams show. If you like what you heard, you can listen to our live show right here on this channel on Sunday, starting at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. And if you want, you can super chat us. We read $20 and up super chats on the show and then do a follow-up stream on the following Tuesday where we read the rest of the unread super chats and interact with fans of the show. Subscribe to this channel right here to listen to the live show or to listen to more of our awesome clips.